Welcome to Relation Tales. Please like this video and subscribe Relation Tales. We're grateful for each and every one of you. Let us know where in the world you're tuning in from. We'd love to hear from you in the comments. Let's begin. It was a chilly Thursday morning in late January when Caleb Hartley, 34, opened his eyes to the soft buzz of his phone. Sunlight poured through the blinds of the home he and his wife, Vanessa Hartley, had shared for the last 3 years, 2 of which they had spent married under the roof Caleb bought with every cent he'd saved since college. He reached out, expecting a good morning message like she used to send, but what stared back at him chilled him to the bone. "Caleb, I need space. Please don't contact me. I just need time to breathe and figure out what I want. I'll reach out when I'm ready. No, I love you." No explanation. Just those clipped, clinical lines. For a second, he blinked at the screen, waiting to wake up from a dream. Vanessa? His Vanessa? The woman who whispered promises into his ear about growing old together? Who he held at night when her anxiety swallowed her whole? That Vanessa? He replied after a moment of stunned stillness. "Okay, Vanessa, take all the time you need. No pleading, no anger. Just an understanding man trying to stay rational in the face of what felt like an emotional ambush." Caleb knew relationships had rough patches. She'd been distant lately, sure, but he chalked it up to work. She'd started staying late at the firm, her once regular kisses replaced by vague excuses and tension he couldn't name. Still, he'd hoped that this message was her way of protecting herself, not a goodbye. But then the silence came. No calls, no texts, no late-night apologies. Caleb tried not to spiral. He poured himself into work, cleaned the house meticulously, avoided their bedroom, and told himself she'd return. He still brewed her favorite coffee each morning, even though her cup remained untouched. A week passed, a week of haunting quiet, and then, on a Friday afternoon, as he scrolled absent-mindedly through his phone during lunch, the universe snapped him in half. A Facebook post, uploaded by a mutual acquaintance, titled, "Surprise Romantic Getaway." He clicked, the album opened, and there she was, Vanessa, his wife, draped in a red silk dress, hand in hand with a man Caleb recognized from one of her office parties, Mark Weller, a 38-year-old married senior partner at her firm. Each photo clawed at Caleb's chest. Beach walks at sunset, champagne flutes clinking, candlelit dinners. A blurred hotel bed selfie where Mark's bare arm wrapped around Vanessa like she was already his. The timestamps? They matched exactly with the day Vanessa asked for space. Caleb's hands began to shake. His heart pounded, so hard he could barely breathe. The betrayal wasn't just physical, it was strategic, planned, cold. This wasn't impulsive. It was an affair disguised as a healing journey. And she'd used Caleb's own home, his mortgage, his walls, his warmth, as a shelter between her secret escapades. He didn't cry. He didn't scream. He went still, the kind of stillness that happens before an earthquake rips the ground apart. The next morning, Caleb sat at his kitchen table and selected 3 photos from the album. One on the beach, their fingers laced together like a couple in love. One at dinner, Mark leaning in, lips grazing Vanessa's cheek. And the hotel mirror shot, with Vanessa's reflection smiling like a teenager high on secrets. Caleb opened Facebook and typed, "You wanted space, Vanessa. Looks like you found it. I hope it was worth it. Oh, and Rachel Weller, I figured you might want to see how your husband spends his business retreats." Attached, 3 damning photos. He tagged Rachel Weller, Mark's wife, a soft-spoken woman he'd only met once at a holiday event, gracious, kind, unsuspecting. Then he hit post. What followed was nuclear. Within 30 minutes, his phone exploded. Texts, calls, DMs, unknown numbers. Panic vibrated through every ring. Mark called first, his voice breathless, unhinged. "Caleb, man, what the hell are you doing? Take that post down. You have no idea what this will do to me. My marriage, my kids, my career. Vanessa said you guys were separated." Caleb didn't answer. He let the call go to voicemail, then blocked the number. Vanessa followed minutes later. Her voice was hysterical. "Caleb, what did you do? Are you crazy? Rachel is screaming at me. I had to leave the house. Mark's freaking out. You have to take it down." Then another voicemail. Her tone cracked with desperation. "Please, Caleb, please. You don't understand what you've done. You're ruining everything. My job, Mark's job is kids. I'm begging you. Take it down and say it was a joke. I'll do anything. Anything. But Caleb just stared at his phone. His fingers twitched, but not to reply. She had built this. He had just pulled off the mask. Then came the flying monkeys. Vanessa's best friend, Sierra, called him vindictive. Her sister, Madison, accused him of cruelty. He replied only once to Madison. Cruelty is lying to your husband and sleeping with someone else's. Rachel deserved the truth. That post wasn't revenge. It was justice. Then he blocked everyone. The chaos grew. The post went viral in their community. Their neighbors saw it. Coworkers whispered. Mutual friends chose sides. But Caleb, he didn't flinch. He'd ignited a fire, and he was letting it burn. It had been 3 days since Caleb's Facebook post detonated, and his home, the same quiet house Vanessa had once called her sanctuary, was now the calm in a storm of hysteria. He hadn't replied to her voicemails. He hadn't unblocked her. He hadn't said a word. But he'd listened. Oh, he'd listened to every begging message she left, each one growing more desperate than the last. Her voice cracked in some, screamed in others. One message was nothing but soft sobbing for nearly 30 seconds, before she whispered, I didn't mean for it to go this far. Caleb remembered scoffing at that line. The affair? That was intentional. What she hadn't meant was for it to come out. And that was the part that destroyed her. He spent his next few days clearing the house of her presence. Her makeup was swept into a box. The framed photo from their honeymoon came down. Her clothes? He stuffed them into garbage bags, then switched to proper boxes after deciding even that felt too symbolic. He didn't want to come off petty. He wasn't going to be the villain in his own story. He called a locksmith and had the locks changed by Monday morning. Then, that Thursday evening, just as the sky turned a dusty purple, his doorbell camera pinged. It was Vanessa. She looked like a ghost of herself. Disheveled hair, blotchy makeup, shoulders trembling. She tried her old key. Nothing. Then her phone. Caleb watched through the app as she held it to her ear. No sound inside. Just silence. And then, like a dam breaking, she began banging on the door. Caleb, open up. You can't just lock me out. This is my home too. He watched, listened, didn't move. I have rights, you can't do this. Caleb, please. No. She had access, not rights. And she traded those for secrecy and champagne on a rented beach. 5 minutes passed before a car pulled up. Her sister Madison stepped out, followed by their mother, Margaret, the same woman who had once called Caleb the best thing that ever happened to Vanessa. Margaret's voice, harsh and self-righteous, rang out through the speaker. Caleb Hartley, open this door right now. You're acting like a petty child. You can't just toss Vanessa out on the street. Caleb's hand stayed in his pockets. Madison added, We're calling the police. This is illegal. He nearly laughed. The house was in his name. She was never on the deed. She'd insisted once that they didn't need paperwork to prove love. Now that decision had backfired beautifully. They pounded and ranted for another 10 minutes, Margaret swearing she'd sue, Madison threatening everything from restraining orders to social media smear campaigns. And then they left, Margaret practically dragging Vanessa back to the car like a misbehaving teen. That night, Caleb sat with a glass of bourbon in hand, watching the security footage again. He didn't feel smug. He didn't even feel angry anymore. He felt focused. She tried to bury him with betrayal. He was going to rise from it with quiet destruction. The next wave hit soon after. He began getting calls from acquaintances. A few even messaged him directly. Apparently Vanessa had begun painting a whole new narrative, that Caleb had grown cold and controlling, that he'd kick her out without warning, that he'd always disrespected her independence, and used his money to manipulate the relationship. One mutual friend forwarded him screenshots of a message Vanessa had sent in a group chat. I was already emotionally checked out. Caleb made me feel trapped. Mark made me feel seen. Caleb forwarded the chat to his lawyer. Because this was no longer just emotional. This was tactical now. Things escalated again on a random Tuesday when Caleb's boss, Dean Whitmore, asked to speak privately. Apparently, someone anonymous had contacted HR, claiming Caleb was emotionally unstable, prone to violent outbursts, and was using social media to target a colleague at the firm, Mark. The same Mark whose affair had started all this. Caleb met the accusation with calm professionalism. He printed screenshots of Rachel's thank you message and explained the situation factually. Dean, who had known Caleb for years, nodded. I figure it was crap, he said. But protocol is protocol. HR investigated, and within 48 hours, the complaint was closed. No merit. Still, it was a warning. They weren't done trying to punish him for exposing the truth. Soon after, his car got reported as abandoned outside his own house. He had to call the city to explain that no, it hadn't been dumped, it was just his driveway. The pettiness was now bordering on comedic. But then came the last straw. A voicemail, again from Margaret. You've taken everything from my daughter. She gave you the best years of her life. She cared for your house, cooked for you, kept your life organized. And now you throw her out like trash. She deserves restitution, emotional damages, pain, and suffering. We're requesting $50,000. Caleb replayed that message 3 times before forwarding it to his lawyer with one note. Time to respond. His attorney, a sharp and measured woman named Elena Ruiz, took swift action. The cease and desist letters went out within 2 days. To Vanessa, to Madison, to Margaret. Harassment, defamation, attempts to harm Caleb's professional standing, threats and slander. The letters were crystal clear. One more false claim, one more call, one more email, and we will file for damages. They didn't expect him to be this prepared, this calm, this relentless. Caleb wasn't playing defense anymore. He was building his next move. The biggest blow came when Rachel, Mark's wife, filed for divorce. And she named Vanessa in the court papers. Adultery, deception, emotional distress. And now that the truth was out in the open, Rachel's legal team reached out to Caleb directly. He cooperated fully. Photos, voicemails, timestamps, even the original "I need space" text. It was all added to the case. Mark's position at the firm? Suspended indefinitely. Vanessa's? She was asked to resign quietly to avoid further scandal. She went from living in a dream home with a devoted husband to crashing on her mother's couch, unemployed, blacklisted, and suddenly very aware that her choices had cost her everything. But Caleb didn't smile at the news. He didn't celebrate. He got quieter, colder, smarter, because this wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about liberation, and he wasn't done yet. It had been nearly 2 weeks since Vanessa's meltdown at the door. Caleb hadn't heard from her directly since the cease and desist, but her presence still loomed like a stain he couldn't scrub out. Even in her absence, she lingered, in the faint scent of her perfume in the hallway, in the quiet gap in the bed she used to fill, in the memories she'd weaponized and walked away from. Then, through her mother, she sent a list. The items Vanessa wanted back. Some of it made sense. Her clothes, her laptop, old journals. But much of the list made Caleb stare in disbelief. The coffee maker he'd bought before they met. A vintage chair from his late uncle's cabin. Even a few throw pillows from the guest room. Elena, his lawyer, stepped in again. Her response was concise. Vanessa could submit a revised list limited to personal property. Caleb would pack them, and a third-party mover, not family, could collect them at an appointed time. No contact, no entry, no negotiations. The message was sent, and silence followed, for 4 days. On the 5th, Margaret responded. Furious. He can't just decide what's hers. How do we know he won't break her things? Caleb didn't reply. Elena did. Then perhaps Miss Hartley should have considered that before attempting to claim half a house she never paid for. The message shut them down. No more emails came after that. That weekend, Caleb began packing her things. He did it quietly, methodically. There was no satisfaction in it, only a sense of closure. He boxed her framed photos, her books on self-empowerment, the glittery pen she used for journaling. He found one plaque that read, "Follow your truth, even if it hurts others." He shook his head. The irony was suffocating. The boxes were stacked neatly on the driveway the following Saturday, just before noon. He stayed inside, sipping black coffee by the living room window as a white van pulled up. Vanessa didn't come herself. Instead, it was Madison, in dark sunglasses, seated in the passenger seat with a stone face. The movers loaded the boxes without a word. Madison didn't even look at the house. Good, Caleb thought. Let all be quiet now. But it wasn't over. That same week, he received a message from Rachel. Just 3 words. Thank you again. She followed it with news. Her divorce was progressing, and Caleb's evidence had helped secure her temporary custody and a favorable financial agreement. Mark was now couch surfing with a cousin 3 states away, blacklisted by several firms. And Vanessa? Word had spread. Fast. She'd attempted to apply for jobs outside the city. Most turned her down. Even those who didn't know the full story caught wind of the scandal after searching her name. Her professional image had crumbled, and her curated life online had gone dark. Instagram deleted. Facebook scrubbed. LinkedIn vanished. Caleb never gloated, but he did feel something settle in his chest. Not revenge. Peace. She'd called him controlling. Said he'd held her back. But in reality, she'd only wanted more, without letting go of what she already had. And now, she had nothing. Caleb didn't need to scream. He didn't need to shout. He just watched quietly as the world responded for him. Justice didn't always come with sirens. Sometimes it came in silence and the steady collapse of lies. A month had passed since the movers came. Caleb had repainted the guest room, replaced the old couch with a new leather one, and taken down every trace of Vanessa's taste from the walls. The house felt different, lighter, quieter, his. But that didn't mean he'd forgotten. Healing wasn't about forgetting. It was about seeing the truth clearly and still moving forward. One afternoon, as he was sorting mail, a familiar voice spoke from behind him. Caleb. He turned. Vanessa stood across the street. She looked smaller than he remembered. Not physically, but in presence. Her confidence had been replaced with something hollow. She wasn't wearing makeup, her hair tied back in a lazy knot, and her arms were wrapped tightly around herself, as if she could hold her crumbling life together. He didn't move. I needed to see you. One last time. Caleb didn't respond. He simply waited. I know you hate me, she said quietly, stepping closer but still keeping distance. I don't blame you. What I did, what happened with Mark, it wasn't just a mistake. I know that now. Still, he said nothing. I lost everything, she continued, tears pooling. My job, my reputation, my dignity, and I deserve to. But Caleb, I wasn't expecting you to be the one to end it all. I never thought you'd. She stopped. Caleb raised an eyebrow. You thought I'd what? Wait? Welcome you back after your little vacation. Her lip trembled, but she nodded slightly. I didn't think you'd ruin me. You're not that kind of person. That made him exhale sharply, almost a laugh. No, he said. I'm not. But I was the kind of person who let you lie to my face while you slipped away behind my back. I was the guy who stayed loyal while you shopped for someone better. And I'm done being that guy. Vanessa swallowed hard. I'm sorry. He believed her. But it didn't matter anymore. She wasn't just his ex-wife. She was a lesson. He turned to go back inside, but paused at the door. You should go, he said without looking back. There's nothing for you here anymore. She didn't protest. He heard her steps retreat, the sound of a car door shutting, then the quiet hum of an engine. When the street returned to silence, Caleb finally stepped inside, closed the door, and locked it. It felt final. Later that week, he got a message from Rachel again. Mark had signed the divorce papers. She was relocating with the kids to a new city, starting fresh. I'll never forget that you gave me the truth, she wrote. It saved me. Caleb replied simply, we both deserve better. He meant it. He wasn't angry anymore. He didn't need revenge. Watching the consequences unfold had been enough. Not out of cruelty, but because truth has its own weight. And once it lands, it never leaves things the same. Vanessa had expected him to be weak. Instead, he was still standing, stronger than ever. Spring crept in slowly that year, and with it came a different kind of stillness, one that wasn't hollow or tense but earned. Caleb stood in his backyard one crisp April morning, sipping coffee while the wind rustled the newly budding branches overhead. His phone was quiet. His inbox was clear. For the first time in a long while, there was no chaos circling his life. He'd started seeing a therapist a few weeks ago, something he'd never imagined needing. But talking helped. Not about Vanessa. Not really. It was more about himself. About the version of Caleb who had ignored the warning signs, who'd let himself be stretched thin for someone who was never truly invested. He no longer blamed that version of himself. That man had loved deeply. He just hadn't known that love isn't enough when you're the only one fighting for it. One day, while picking up groceries, Caleb ran into someone unexpected. Sierra, Vanessa's old best friend. She looked nervous, eyes darting, as if she wasn't sure whether to wave or flee. He decided for her. "Hey," Caleb said casually, tossing a pack of eggs into his cart. Sierra forced a tight smile. "Hi, Caleb. Wow, didn't expect to see you here." He shrugged. "Same." She hesitated, then said, "Look, I just want to say, I was wrong. I shouldn't have believed everything she told me. I didn't know the whole story." He nodded slowly. "That's the thing about liars," he said. "They always make sure to be the victim in their version." Sierra sighed. "She's not doing great. Living with her mom. Still trying to get a job, but everything follows her now. She talks about you sometimes." Caleb didn't flinch. "I'm sure she does. Doesn't that bother you?" Sierra asked. "That she still talks about what happened?" "No," he replied, locking eyes with her. "Because I moved on." And she didn't. That night, he updated his resume for the first time in years and began applying for positions in a new city. Clean start, clean space. He even considered selling the house. Not out of grief, but out of clarity. His memories deserved new walls. Ones that hadn't absorbed her whispers, her lies, or the silence she left behind. 3 months later, he got an offer from a firm in Denver. A higher position, better pay, a relocation bonus. He took it. The day before he moved, he stood in the empty living room one last time, surrounded by boxes and sunlight. He closed his eyes and listened, not for her footsteps, or for some ghost of a life that used to be, but for peace. And he found it. He never heard from Vanessa again after that brief sidewalk encounter. No letters. No more calls. No emails. Just silence. He hoped she figured herself out. He really did. But that wasn't his burden anymore. Caleb Hartley had been betrayed, humiliated, discarded, and yet he rose without screaming, without vengeance that left scars. He just told the truth. Let the world react. And when the smoke cleared, he was the one still standing. Not broken. Rebuilt. And this time, entirely on his own terms.